Welcome to the deep dive. Before we really get started with the great source material we've got today, let me ask you something to think about. Just consider, like, the last 24 hours. What everyday things did you do, maybe chatting with friends or learning something new for school, that pretty much rely completely on technology?
Yeah, that's a great question to start with, and it's almost a trick question, isn't it? Because the answer is, well, almost everything. So our mission today in this deep dive is to figure out who exactly builds all this stuff, who runs it, who manages this whole digital world we live in. We're going to explore six really specific and important modern tech careers. It's all laid out in our source material, which is called Exploring Modern Tech Careers.
Yeah, you hear tech jobs thrown around a lot, almost like it's just one big mysterious thing. But
Mhm.
what I find really interesting and what our source highlights is this core idea. Technology isn't just its own little world, it drives every field now.
Ah,
Like whether you're thinking about medicine or entertainment, art, even engineering, tech is kind of the engine behind it all.
exactly. And understanding these different roles we're going to talk about, that's really key to getting ready for future opportunities. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to, become a coder right this second, but knowing who the different players are, what kind of problems they actually solve, that's super valuable.
Okay, so let's start with the first group. The people who are like literally making the digital tools we use every single day. Let's call them the creators and builders.
Mm,
And we should probably begin with maybe the most classic role people think of, the software developer.
A software developer, you can think of them as the architects and, well, the builders of this digital world. They're the ones designing and actually building computer programs, the apps on your phone, the websites you visit. They create the engine, basically, that powers everything from, say, your favorite social media app to a really complex stuff like scientific simulations.
Okay, so how do they actually do that? How do they tell the computer what to build? They use special coding languages, right? Like specific tools for the job. Our source mentions Python, Java, C++. What? Why are there so many different ones, though?
That's a good point. It really comes down to choosing the right tool for the specific job. Think of it maybe like this. Maybe Python is like a really reliable pickup truck. It's great for lots of general tasks, helps you get things done pretty quickly. Then you've got something like C++1 that might be more like a high-performance race car. It's incredibly fast, but also pretty complex to handle. You'd use that when every tiny fraction of a second counts, like in really advanced video game engines or maybe the core operating system of a computer.
Gotcha. Okay, so here's a little challenge for you listening. How could programming specifically help solve a problem or maybe just improve life in your community? Maybe not something huge like city traffic, but think smaller, more local. Could, like, an app help organize study groups at your school? Or maybe make the local recycling program easier to use?
Yeah, and that's exactly where the power is, right? Taking those technical skills and applying them to solve real, everyday problems. That's the exciting part.
Okay, moving from maybe pure utility to, well, fun. Let's talk about the game developer. This job seems like a perfect example of how tech isn't just about the code.
Oh, absolutely. What's really fascinating about game development is how it blends so many things together. You've got storytelling, you've got the coding aspect, and you've got art, all coming together to create these interactive, really engaging experiences. A big part of their job is constantly testing out ideas, building prototypes, and also, crucially, doing something called debugging.
Debugging, we hear that term a lot. It means fixing errors, right? But that sounds maybe a bit too simple. What's actually involved in debugging something like a game?
It's much more than just fixing typos. It's like being a detective, really. Systematic detective work. It means hunting down why that character keeps walking through solid walls, or figuring out why the score suddenly jumps by a million points for no reason. It takes intense logical thinking. You have to systematically comb through potentially thousands of lines of code to find that one single mistake, that one misplaced command that's breaking the whole interactive story. And this brings up a really interesting question, something to think about. What skills do you think matter most in game development? Is it the creativity to dream up the world and the story? Or is it the logic needed to build the rules and make it all work correctly? The truth is, the best games happen when those two things are perfectly balanced. You can have the greatest story idea, but without a flawless technical backbone holding it up, it just won't work as an interactive experience.
That makes sense. So if the developer builds the engine of the car, maybe the next role, the graphic and UX designer, they're the ones designing the dashboard, the seats, making sure it's easy and, well, pleasant to drive.
That's a great analogy. Absolutely. Graphic designers create the visual elements, the art, the layouts, but the UX part, user experience, That's intensely focused on how it feels to use something. The whole goal of UX is making sure the design isn't just pretty, but also really clear, intuitive,
Hmm.
enjoyable even.
Yeah, I think everyone's had that experience, right? Where you download an app and the buttons are tiny or you can't find the menu
Yeah.
and you just give up. It's so frustrating. That's bad UX in action.
Exactly. And if we kind of zoom out and connect this to the bigger picture,
Mm.
why is the design aspect, the clarity, the enjoyment, why is that just as important as the underlying technology? Well, think about it. A software developer could build the fastest, most efficient app imaginable. But if people find it confusing or frustrating to actually use it, they'll probably just switch to a competitor's app, even if it's technically slower or simpler. Good design ensures people actually use and like the technology. That focus on human-centered design is just essential.
Okay, so we've talked about the creators and builders, the people designing the car and building the highway, sticking with that analogy. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the organizers and synthesizers. These are maybe more like the traffic controllers and the mechanics, the folks making sure the whole system runs safely and efficiently. First up, someone absolutely vital for reliability, the network and systems administrator.
Ah, yes, the network admins. These people are truly the unsung heroes of our digital lives. They're the ones making sure all the communication between computers and networks runs smoothly. That means managing the Wi-Fi, keeping those important server rooms cool, handling crucial data backups, all that behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right, and here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The network admin is often the first line of defense when things go wrong, like against digital disasters. What actually happens when a system starts to fail? And how do these administrators stop it from becoming a total shutdown?
They use what's called layered defense and constant monitoring. It's not just one thing. Think of their job like protecting a really important vault. They set up multiple layers of security firewalls, access controls. They perform regular backups, like making copies of everything in the vault just in case something gets through to the main one. And they're constantly watching, monitoring for any unusual activity. That could be a hacker trying to sneak in, or maybe something simpler, like a piece of equipment overheating before it fails completely. Their main job, day in and day out, is keeping those systems secure and making sure they stay up and running.
That security part feels so incredibly important today because the amount of information flowing around is just huge and it never stops. So once the network admins have the systems running securely, this next group comes in to actually make sense of all that information flowing through the data analyst and scientist.
Yes, the data detectives. That's a good way to think about them. They
Hmm.
collect, they organize, and then they interpret often massive amounts of information. Their goal is to find useful patterns, things that you wouldn't see just by glancing at the raw numbers, actionable patterns. They don't just stare at spreadsheets. They translate those numbers into insights that people can actually understand and use.
And they help big organizations, right, like governments, hospitals, companies, make decisions based on actual evidence instead of just, guessing or going with gut feeling. So they might analyze, say, wait times in a hospital emergency room to figure out where more staff are needed, or look at customer shopping data to predict what products might be popular next month.
Precisely. Their core responsibility is finding the meaning hidden within the information. So let's make this a bit more concrete for you listening. What's an example of data that could maybe improve things at your school or in your town? Forget boring stuff like lunch queues for a second. Maybe analyzing data on when students actually use the school library or the online learning resources. That could help the school figure out the best opening hours, or maybe identify subjects where students need more digital support.
That's a great example. Okay, our final career on the list today is one you're probably interacting with constantly, maybe without even thinking about it. It bridges the gap between all this complex tech and data and, well, us, the general public. This is the digital content creator.
Right. Digital content creators. They're the ones producing all sorts of media online. Could be educational stuff like YouTube tutorials or science explainers, or entertaining things like viral videos, or even persuasive content like reviews or news summaries.
But just making a cool video or writing a good post, that's only part of the job, isn't it? They also need to have a pretty sophisticated understanding of two key things: audience analytics and algorithms.
Yeah, those are crucial. And it's interesting to understand what an algorithm actually is in this context. Essentially, it's like a recipe or a complex formula that the platform like YouTube or TikTok or Instagram uses to decide which content gets shown to its users and in what order. It controls what you see. And it's based on all sorts of factors, like how much people engage with a post, how long they watch a video, what you've liked or watched before. It's complicated. And beyond the technical side, they also have to grapple with digital ethics. which raises a really important question about responsibility, doesn't it? How can creators use these incredibly powerful platforms, which can reach millions of people almost instantly? How can they use them responsibly? Because they have such a huge potential impact, they really need to think about the messages they're putting out there, especially concerning things like spreading misinformation, even accidentally, or maybe creating content that's designed just to exploit people's fears or curiosity to get clicks. So their core job is communicating ideas online, but doing it ethically and effectively is a huge part of that.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's try to sort of pull this together and do a quick knowledge check on these 6 key roles we've explored. Let's just quickly link the job title back to its main fundamental responsibility.
Sounds good. So the software developer, their core thing is writing and testing code, building the software. The network admin is all about keeping those critical systems secure and running. The graphic UX designer focuses on improving the visual side and, importantly, the usability, the whole experience of using the tech.
Right. Then the data analyst, they're the ones finding meaning in all the information. The game developer builds those interactive stories and experiences. And the content creator communicates ideas online, hopefully responsibly.
Okay, perfect. Now, here's a challenge question. This one comes straight from our source material. Which two of these jobs do you think would need to work really closely together? And maybe more importantly, why would they need each other? Try to think beyond the really obvious pairings, like maybe a software developer and a UX designer working together. That's a good one. Okay, one connection that might be less obvious, but is actually super critical, is the data analyst and the content creator. Why them? Well, the analyst can give the creator incredibly valuable, precise data. Not just, hey, your video got lots of views, but maybe, look, people consistently clicked away at exactly the 2-minute mark. Or this type of title got way more clicks than that other type. So the analyst provides the evidence that helps the creator actually understand their audience and make smarter, more effective content next time.
That makes total sense. The data guides the creativity. What about another pairing?
Another really essential partnership, I think, is between the software developer and the data analyst. Think about it. The developer often builds the tools or systems that collect the data in the first place. Maybe they build a website feature that tracks user clicks. But the analyst needs to be able to tell the developer, hey, the way you're collecting this data isn't quite giving us what we need, or can we track this other metric instead? They have to work together closely to make sure the system is built correctly, to capture the right information, and then that the analyst can actually get meaningful insights from it. They refine both the tool and the analysis together.
Fascinating connections. Okay, we have definitely covered a huge amount today, really diving deep into these 6 crucial technology careers that honestly power so much of our modern world. From actually building the apps to figuring out what all the data means,
Right.
these roles really are shaping the future of work.
Absolutely. And before we wrap things up, just take a moment, you listening. You've explored these 6 key tech careers with us today. Which one, just based on what we talked about, do you think kind of matches your natural strengths right now? Are you leaning more towards the creative side, or maybe the analytical problem solving side, or perhaps the hands-on technical building aspect? Just recognizing where your interests naturally lean, that's a fantastic first step if you're starting to think about possible career paths. And what's really interesting looking ahead is something our source material emphasizes. All of these roles, different as they seem, increasingly rely on a common set of future-ready skills. So keep this in mind as you explore things further. Skills like understanding AI literacy, or knowing the basics of cybersecurity, or being able to work effectively in digital teams. These are becoming the common threads. Whether you end up designing a game or securing a network or analyzing data, those kinds of adaptable skills, they're what really bridge all these specialized jobs together and prepare you for whatever comes next in tomorrow's world.